Political fights between leaders are common today, but this is not new in America. Presidents have had strong rivalries for a long time. These conflicts often shaped the country's history. One good example is John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, two of America's first leaders. They were once very good friends. They worked together to write the Declaration of Independence. They shared big ideas for the new country. But their friendship changed when they both wanted to be president. This happened in the year 1796. The elections of 1796 and 1800 were very harsh. People used bad words and insults. Supporters of Adams called Jefferson a mean-spirited, low-lived fellow. Jefferson supporters said Adams was a hideous character. These attacks hurt their friendship deeply. In 1800, Jefferson won the election. Adams was very angry. He left Washington, D.C. early on the day Jefferson became president. He did not go to the ceremony. This made him the first president to skip his successor's inauguration, showing his deep unhappiness. Years later, their anger passed. They started writing letters to each other. Slowly, they became friends again. It is a famous fact that they both died on the same day, July 4th, 1826. This was exactly 50 years after they helped create America. 2. The first big fights. After the fights of Adams and Jefferson, a new big rivalry began. This was between John Quincy Adams, the son of John Adams, and Andrew Jackson. Their fight was one of the most unfriendly in American history. It all started with the election of 1824. There were four main candidates. Andrew Jackson won the most votes from the people and the most electoral votes, but he did not win a majority. This meant the House of Representatives had to choose the president. Henry Clay, who was the leader of the House, supported John Quincy Adams. So the House voted and Adams became president. Soon after, Adams made Clay his Secretary of State. Many people, especially Jackson supporters, called this a corrupt bargain. They believed Adams had stolen the presidency. Andrew Jackson was very angry. He felt betrayed. He spent the next 4 years planning his revenge. In 1828, Adams and Jackson ran for president again. This time, the election was very harsh. Adams's team attacked Jackson. They said he was a violent, uneducated man. They even attacked his wife, Rachel. They called her bad names. Jackson's team fought back. They accused Adams of bad behavior too, saying he helped rich Russians with bad things. It was a very personal and ugly campaign. Jackson won the election in 1828 by a lot of votes. John Quincy Adams was very upset. Like his father, he did not go to Jackson's inauguration. Instead, Jackson opened the White House doors for his supporters. They had a big, loud party. But there was also sadness. Andrew Jackson's wife, Rachel, died just weeks before he became president. Jackson believed the cruel campaign attacks had caused her death. He said he could never forgive those who murdered her with their words. This was more than just politics for him. It was deeply personal. This intense rivalry had a big effect. It split the main political party of that time and helped create the modern two-party system we know today. 3. A country in trouble. After the Civil War, America was a country in trouble. This period was called Reconstruction. The nation needed to heal, but President Andrew Johnson and General Ulysses S. Grant had different ideas. Johnson wanted to be easy on the South. He offered pardons and wanted old leaders back in power quickly. But General Grant, a war hero, and many in Congress wanted a tougher plan. They aimed to protect newly freed Black Americans' rights and stop former Confederates from regaining control. Johnson and Grant were supposed to work together, but their ideas clashed. Their disagreement grew. Trouble started when Johnson tried to fire his Secretary of War, Edwin Stanton. Stanton supported Congress's tough Reconstruction. A law said the president needed Senate approval to fire a cabinet member. So, Johnson asked Grant to temporarily take Stanton's place. Grant agreed at first. But when Congress strongly disagreed, Grant stepped back. He gave the job back to Stanton. President Johnson became very angry. He wrote a public letter accusing Grant of breaking his word and disrespecting the president. He called Grant disloyal. Grant wrote his own calm letter explaining his side. He made it clear he was not Johnson's puppet. By 1869, Grant was set to become the new president. The bad feelings were too strong to fix. Grant refused to ride with Johnson to the inauguration. President Johnson then skipped the event entirely. He stayed in the White House, signing papers to avoid his successor. This was more than a personal fight. It had big effects on the country. Their feud was about how America would rebuild after the war. Johnson's softer plan was very different from Grant's plan for justice and change. When Grant became president, he pushed for strong Reconstruction. He used federal soldiers to protect civil rights and fight groups like the Ku Klux Klan. This rivalry shaped America's future. 4. When friends become enemies. Theodore Teddy Roosevelt and William Howard Taft were once very close friends. Roosevelt, a popular president, chose Taft to be his successor in 1908. He believed Taft would continue his important work, like fighting big businesses and protecting nature. Roosevelt thought Taft would keep his ideas strong for the country. However, once Taft became president, he started to do things differently. He began to work with other politicians who did not like Roosevelt's ideas. Taft also fired some of Roosevelt's friends from important jobs. Roosevelt felt very sad and betrayed. He felt like his best friend was going against everything they believed in. By 1912, Roosevelt was extremely angry. He decided to leave his retirement and run for president again. He wanted to challenge Taft, the very man he had helped become president. The election became very personal. Both men said harsh things about each other. Roosevelt called Taft a puzzle-wit and said he had less brains than a guinea pig. Taft, who was usually quiet, fought back. He called Roosevelt a honeyfuggler, which meant someone who sweet-talks while lying. Roosevelt was so upset that he left the Republican Party. He started his own new political group called the Bull Moose Party. His anger was so great that he was willing to let another party win. Because the votes for Republicans were split between Roosevelt and Taft, a Democrat named Woodrow Wilson won the election easily. Taft was very sad, and people said he cried. Their friendship was completely broken. This rivalry did not just hurt two friends, it also changed the Republican Party forever. 5. Difficult times, angry men. The United States has faced many hard times. During these difficult moments, presidents sometimes had strong disagreements. These fights made things even harder for the country. One such rivalry was between Herbert Hoover and Franklin D. Roosevelt, or FDR. This was during the Great Depression in the 1930s. Banks were closing, and many people had no jobs. Hoover was the president, and FDR won the election to replace him in November 1932. Their dislike for each other was very deep. Hoover called FDR a chameleon, meaning he changed his ideas often. FDR called Hoover a fat, timid capon, which meant he was a weak, fearful leader. After FDR won, there was a long 4-month period before he became president. The country's banking system was failing badly. Hoover asked FDR to support his plans to fix the economy, but FDR said no. He did not want to be linked to Hoover's old policies. Hoover became very angry, calling FDR's refusal a cold-blooded political act. On Inauguration Day in March 1933, the two men rode to the Capitol together. They sat in silence and barely spoke. This lack of cooperation between them made the banking crisis much worse. It was a real standoff, and the American economy suffered because of it. Later, during another time of economic trouble, a different kind of rivalry happened. This was between Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan in 1980. Carter had just lost the election to Reagan. The country faced high prices, gas shortages, and the Iran hostage crisis. The transition between the two leaders was very awkward. In a meeting, Reagan seemed not to pay attention and took no notes. Carter, already upset, told Reagan to listen more closely. Nancy Reagan, Ronald's wife, even asked if they could move into the White House early to redecorate. The Carters were surprised and said no. The final, painful moment for Carter came just minutes after Reagan became president. The American hostages in Iran, whom Carter had worked 444 days to free, were finally released. This was a hard blow for Carter. This rivalry was not about insults, but about very different people passing power during tough times. 6. Fights in a New World. During the Cold War, strong disagreements between presidents shaped American history. Harry Truman and Dwight D. Eisenhower were two such leaders. They were once allies during World War II. Truman thought Eisenhower was a great war hero and even wanted him to enter politics. However, their good feelings changed by 1952 when Eisenhower ran for president. Truman became very angry with Eisenhower. This happened because Eisenhower did not defend General George Marshall. Marshall was a highly respected general and a close friend to Truman. Senator Joseph McCarthy was accusing Marshall of communist actions. Eisenhower was campaigning. He had planned to speak in Marshall's defense, but his advisers told him not to. They feared it would upset some voters. So Eisenhower stayed silent. Truman saw this as a lack of courage. He attacked Eisenhower often during the 1952 election campaign, saying Eisenhower put votes before his principles. Eisenhower, who was new to politics, felt hurt by these words. Their relationship became very cold. On Inauguration Day in 1953, the bad feelings were clear. Truman invited Eisenhower for coffee at the White House before the ceremony, but Eisenhower refused. Truman later wrote that Eisenhower knew little about politics. This dislike was not just awkward, it was risky. The presidential change happened during the Korean War, and their poor teamwork delayed important talks about policy. Luckily, years later, their feelings softened. Another deep disagreement was between President John F. Kennedy and his Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson. In 1960, Kennedy chose Johnson as his running mate for political reasons, not friendship. Kennedy needed Johnson's help to win votes in southern states. Once they were in office, they barely got along. Johnson felt that Kennedy's close group, especially Kennedy's brother Bobby, did not respect him. Johnson came from a different kind of political world in Texas and did not fit with the polished image of Kennedy's inner circle. Johnson often complained privately about how the Kennedys treated him. After Kennedy was killed, Johnson became president. He then worked to reduce the Kennedy family's power. In 1967, Johnson helped pass a law that stopped presidents from giving top government jobs to family members. This was a direct message to the Kennedy family. Johnson felt Kennedy had kept him powerless as vice president. When he became president, Johnson moved away from those who were loyal to Kennedy. He even joked that Kennedy was not very good at passing laws, meaning that Johnson himself knew better how to use power. Later, Lyndon B. Johnson also had a strong dislike for Richard Nixon. Johnson even accused Nixon of treason. In 1968, Johnson was trying to find peace in Vietnam before leaving office. But Nixon's campaign secretly tried to stop these peace talks. Nixon's team told leaders in South Vietnam to wait for a better deal when Nixon won the election. When Johnson found out, he was furious, calling it treason. He believed Nixon had put his country's interests at risk for political gain. This showed how personal feelings could deeply affect important national decisions, even during changes in power. 7. Fights in our time. One recent big fight was between Barack Obama and Donald Trump. Their disagreements started before Trump became president. Trump said that Obama was not born in the United States. This was called the birther conspiracy. Obama later showed his birth certificate, but Trump kept talking about it. In 2011, Obama made jokes about Trump at a special dinner. He made fun of Trump's TV show and his claims. Trump looked very serious. Some people believe this event made Trump want to run for president himself. When Trump won the election in 2016, he worked to change many of Obama's policies. He removed parts of the Affordable Care Act, left the Iran nuclear deal, and stopped the Paris Climate Accords. Trump also said Obama's team spied on his campaign. He blamed Obama for many problems in the country. Later, Obama spoke out, which was unusual for a former president. He called Trump's handling of the COVID-19 situation a big problem. He also joked about Trump not leaving office. Trump also broke a long tradition by not inviting Obama to the White House to show his official portrait. This rivalry made the country feel very divided. Then came the intense rivalry between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. They fought hard during the 2020 election. Trump called Biden Sleepy Joe and talked about Biden's son. Biden called Trump the worst president ever and said he was not fit to lead. When Joe Biden won the election by many votes, Trump did not accept the results. He said the election was stolen and went to court many times. This led to a difficult time in the country, including the events of January 6th at the U.S. Capitol. On Inauguration Day, Trump did not go to Biden's ceremony. This was the first time in 152 years that an outgoing president missed his successor's swearing-in. It broke a long tradition of peaceful power transfer. Instead, Trump left for Florida that morning. After leaving office, Trump continued to say the election was not fair. Biden, in turn, said Trump's actions were a danger to American democracy. This lack of cooperation between them also made it harder to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic early on. These recent fights show how much presidential rivalries can affect the country and its democracy. 8. The end of the story. This book has shown us that strong disagreements between presidents are not a new thing. From America's very first leaders to those in our modern era, we have seen many examples of these intense rivalries. These conflicts were often driven by a mix of personal ambition, different ideas about how the country should be run, and sometimes simply a strong personal dislike. These presidential feuds were never just simple arguments or passing dramas. Instead, they deeply changed the course of American politics. They led to the creation of new political parties, influenced major national policies that affected everyone, and in some serious cases, even threatened the very stability of the country itself. We have seen a range of actions, from secret backstabbing and hidden betrayals to very public insults and harsh words exchanged between these powerful leaders. The strong emotions and deep-seated hate felt between these individuals had real and lasting effects on America. These rivalries shaped important laws, caused delays in crucial government work, and sometimes made the peaceful transfer of power incredibly difficult. Each conflict left its mark, influencing decisions and directions for years to come. Ultimately, the story of these rivalries reminds us that even the people in the highest office are still human. They experience all the same strong emotions and personal conflicts that come with being a person. Their friendships could end, and their disagreements could become deeply personal. These very human feelings have played a significant role throughout America's political journey, continuously influencing its path. What do you believe is the most important lesson we can learn from studying these presidential rivalries?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.